No, man, but you got to keep going. What am I going to do, quit? That's not an option. You got to keep on keeping on. Life's a garden, dig it? You make it work for you. You never give up, man. That's my philosophy.
Hey, gardeners. Hope you're all having a great week out in your gardens. Welcome to the show. I'm out here right now. I am just, I am remulching one of my side in-ground garden beds here, the side alleyway bed. I was checking out some of our garlic and noticed that a lot of our fall leaves have already broken down into our soil. We've got some volunteer potatoes that have come up enough now, so I see most of all the plants. I know where they're at, so we're going to mulch all around them with some leaves that we saved from this last fall. So we're going to remulch up through here and through our garlic, which is looking great, looking good. But I also noticed these ones here are nice and thick, just really healthy looking stalks and everything. And then I was looking closer and noticed that I must have left some garlic from last year, or maybe even I split one when I was like digging them out or something. And you can tell that a couple of cloves have produced a couple of plants here. And so they've kind of volunteered from the year before. You always know that volunteers are looking nicer and healthier, but these are also under stress though. Just because they pop up like that, that's also stressing them out. And I noticed here, they're already starting to produce a flower stalk. The scape on these are already starting to come out. They shouldn't be coming out quite yet. We should probably have a few more weeks before the rest of them do. But yeah, these ones are already doing that. I'm sure that's because it's stressed out. They're growing out of the same spot there. But we'll see what we get here. I'll let that stalk come up just a little bit more. We'll harvest the scape off of it, and then we'll pull those out and see what we get compared to the rest of what we have here as well too. But all right, everybody, we got a great show for you today. Thanks for being here. All right, let's get growing.
All right. All of my passionate plant people and garden enthusiasts, welcome to the Let's Get Growing show right here on the Urban Gardener channel. I'm Enoch. I'm your host today, and we've got a great show for you today. In fact, we're kind of revisiting a conversation we tried to have a few weeks ago with a really amazing author, Jules Acton. She was out on location somewhere, so her connection wasn't that great on our last chance we tried to talk. So we hurried up to bring her back on the show to continue our conversation to talk about her really wonderful book, Oaklore. So we've got Jules Acton back on the show today, and we'll talk with her just a little bit later on about this really great book. And again, too, really looking forward to this conversation. Plus, we've got Julia Dimakos joining with us. Julia was back on the show in our first year of the show. It's great to have her back. We'll catch up with her, the gardening girl, and see what she's got growing on in her gardens this year. She should be joining with us here hopefully in just a little bit here in our first segment. So again, like I said, we've got some great guests for you all here today, like we do every weekend. And if you can right now, definitely hit that like button, click the thumbs up, hit the subscribe button and the bell notification to be notified of all of our upcoming videos and live streams. And again, I did put out another video. I'm starting to get consistent here, hopefully. But yeah, I got another video in our pepper growing series out right now, talking about selecting. So we're selecting plants and transplanting, and I kind of talk about a new soil that we use. We talked about before our seed starting soil. So I talk about the soil that we use as we're transplanting. We get into that and a few other things as well too. It's a great video. You want to go check that out. If you haven't checked that out yet, go to our video page here on the Urban Gardener channel and catch up with all of our latest videos. I should be having another garden journal catching up with the things growing on in our garden as well too, coming out real soon. Definitely also share with all your friends. Let everybody know about the Let's Get Growing show here every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, 2 p.m. Eastern, right here on the Urban Gardener channel. Let all of your friends and garden friends and garden groups, clubs, all of that, let everybody know that we've got a great conversation going on here all weekend long here with some really great gardeners. We are, you won't find a show like this where you're going to get all of these just really amazing and wonderful gardeners together to get together and talk about our favorite thing. I mean, we all love gardening, and we know what it's like to have conversations with other folks out there during the rest of the week and all of that. So we can gather together and talk about what we really love, and that's growing plants in our gardens and food and whatever, however you like to garden. We're going to talk about it right here on the Let's Get Growing show. So definitely let all your friends know so that they can come join the conversation with all of us as well too. So right on, everybody. Thank you so much for being here, and a huge shout out to all of you who are joining us on the replay. We always want to thank you guys because you're real important to our show as well too. Thank you for joining with us when you have a chance to be able to watch these great conversations that we have for you here on our show today. So definitely drop into the comments below. Let me know you are here. Let me know what you've got growing on. Let me know if you've got any questions, comments, suggestions. I'd love to hear guest suggestions. Are there some cool gardeners out there, you know, garden communicators, some garden channels, authors, radio hosts? I always love talking to the radio hosts. Anybody. You got a suggestion for a great guest for our show? Definitely drop into the comments. Let me know below as well too. And if you have any questions or comments for me or our guests that we have with us here today, definitely drop those questions or comments into the chat as well too. Put them in nice big bold capital letters too, so that I can see the questions from the rest of the conversation going on, because I know you guys love to have a great conversation there while we're having our conversation here. But I know there's several of you like to have and drop in some questions for our guests and everything too. So big bold capital letters, and that way I can hopefully see them and make sure we ask them of our guests while they're here with us today. And definitely check all the links down below to our guests. We've got links to them and their channels and where you can find them as well too. And if they got social media or a channel or something like that, go find a post or a video or something, and go let them know that you saw them here on the Let's Get Growing show. Right on. Again, thank you all so much for being here today. Thank you for joining with me. It's great to have all of you here. And let's see here. I know we got a few people joining with us already. Let's see. I was looking for one. Sorry. I'll say, okay. Anyways, let's see here. I don't see Jay's normal introduction for our show in the chat. Maybe it's there and I'm not seeing it. I'm sorry. But anyways, Jay's always saying thanks to all of you for being here too. Jay's a great facilitator for the show here, and always dropping in great information and links throughout the show as well too. So that's one thing we always want to let you know and make sure you know here at the top of the show as well too, is that keep an eye out for Jay's comments and those links and all of that there too as well too, because there could be more information or even channel shout outs and all of that as well too. So Jay does a great job facilitating our chat for us. Thank you, Jay, for being here. And as well too, we've got I saw we got Rob's Allotment Gardening joining us from the UK. Awesome to see you, Rob. Thanks for joining with us here. Great to have you. Also, Adam, our good friend Adam Burley, another administrator here, moderator for our chat as well too. Adam, thank you for joining with us. Just right up the road here in Central Point, Oregon. I'm in Southern Oregon as well, here in the same Rogue Valley. So good to see you, Adam. Thank you so much for being here. I see Dusty Flats in the conversation. Awesome to see you here, as well as our good friend Rick saying coffee time, joining us from the future. Our good friend Rick is bright and early, joining us from tomorrow. down in Australia. So great to see you, Rick. Thank you for getting up bright and early to be with us here today. And, it's great to see all of you here for the conversation. And let's see here. I don't want to miss anybody. Oh, I see Happy Heart. Rebecca, great to see you here. Thanks for joining with us here today. Excellent to have you here for the conversation, as well as David from Bowtie Life in the Garden. Awesome to have you here as well too. And right on. Excellent, everybody. As those of you who are already in, I'm running just like a lot of times. This is a live show. Sometimes there's things I'm trying to pull together last minute. I'm working as hard as I can to meet my deadline, and so I can get this show started right on time, and as many people who are here right on time, ready to go, ready and waiting for the show. Y'all know I was running just a couple of minutes late with getting a few things together, but we've got a great show, like I said, ahead for you here today. And right on, let's see here. I want to make sure, again, I was trying to put a couple of things together already for what we've got going on today. But like I said, we got lots of things growing on. Hope you got a lot of great things growing on in your gardens. As you saw there, we've got, I'm doing some mulching around, trying to patch up some spaces from some of our fall leaves that I mulch up and everything, and I get everything buried up and tucked in for the winter time really nicely. But those break down by this time of year throughout the winter, so I got to go through and I save leaves from last fall as well too. So I go in and remulch everything back up. So that's kind of what I've been doing this year or this week for the garden, and getting a lot of things planted, started, lots of starts coming up, and hardening off. This is my hardening off week because last frost day is here now. For me in the Rogue Valley, we're ready to go. We were probably ready to go a few weeks ago, but again, I'm playing it safe. I'm also kind of forced in a way with one of my crops, though, to wait anyways. And unfortunately, I'm always planning, at least over the last few years, planning ahead with my tomatoes. And I kind of mentioned this just briefly last week on the show. I'm going to talk a little bit on our garden journal about this in just a little bit as well, too, coming out in our next garden journal video. But I made a gardener mistake, and one of those mistakes that happens when, we get really busy at this time of season. We've got a lot of things growing on, and some things can just get overlooked. And sometimes if some things get overlooked for just a day or two, that could cause a real problem. And that's what happened for me with some of my really young tomato seedlings that I had a couple or a week or so back. I mean, I had some nice little seedlings, was getting them outdoors, basically hardening them off really young, and just got busy one day and totally, they just dried out and fried out on me. There was no way I was bringing them back to life. It was really an unfortunate thing. So, I mean, I want all of you to know that even though I've got gardening experience and I've been doing this for a while, I even do this kind of stuff as well. My tomatoes, and I always try to get ahead of the season on these. I should have had those already out, like I said, this back then, maybe a week or so. So I should have already had them out into my garden already, even prior to our last frost date. I kind of get risky with my tomatoes a little bit, but unfortunately, I've restarted. So we've got, they're small now. They're just not quite ready to go throw them right out and into the garden. We got, I got lots of slugs and things I'm trying to deal with. So I don't want really, really young plants in our in-ground spaces and everything right out there right yet. So I'm going to let them grow out just a little bit longer and we'll get those done and everything. But lots of other things are hardening off and getting ready to go out this week. It's exciting time of the year. I know a lot of you maybe in the South have already got tomatoes growing on your plants already. And then some of you in the North are probably a little more along with me right now because you've had to start just a little bit later as well because your last frost dates are still yet to come as well too. So, but it's again, a real fun, exciting time of year. We're getting to kind of move from the cool season towards our summer season crops. Our last frost dates are hitting, which means ultimately though, what we're looking for is our good soil temperature. We want those roots to be able to go into some good soil temperatures. So right now we're looking, I'm looking for most of these soil temperatures to get up in the nice 50s range at least, for my temperatures for most of things, and then a little warmer for some other things as we start direct seeding here in a couple more weeks as well too. Right on. Again, I'm running a little late today, but we got a great show in here in just a moment here. We'll get started here with our very first guest here. It's great. We've got a return guest coming back to this show. So we'll be right back here just in a moment, and we'll get started with Are You Following Me?
Hi, my name is Charles Malky, biologist and plant expert with Ivory Organics, where we grow cool plants and author Saving the World with the Home Garden. Ivory Organic 3-in-1 Plant Guard has 7 natural oils that protect your plants, not just from the summer heat as well as winter cold, but also protects your plants from damaging insects and rodents. The oils in the product include castor, cinnamon, clove, garlic, peppermint, rosemary, and spearmint. These oils are natural insect and rodent repellent oils, which are encapsulated by the base powder, offering your plants months of protection at a time. 1 application per year will suffice for protection against damaging summer sunburn and winter sun scald, but if the target is pests, application as much as 2 to 3 times a year may be necessary.
Hi everyone, this is Sarah from Sarah's Seed Shop, here with this week's trivia question. How long can asparagus plants live? A, 2 to 5 years, B, 5 to 10 years, C, 10 to 15 years, or D, more than 15 years? We'll be back with the answer a little later in the show.
All right. The answer to Sarah's trivia question, drop it into the comments there, and she'll be back with us in just a little bit here on the next break to give you all the answer to this week's trivia question. And definitely go check out Sarah's Seed Shop at sarahseedshop.com. And if you didn't get a chance to check out last week's show, actually a show, and we always say that we're here every Saturday and Sunday, but some weekends, as we've been finding out a little bit, I've got some commitments and things that I have to do, and I'm giving another pre-warning, maybe one more time. But Saturdays sometimes are just the only days where some of us could do some things, and even for me, I've got to interrupt our live show in order to go and do some things. But that was the case last Saturday, so we didn't have a show last Saturday, but we did have a great Sunday edition of the show. If you didn't get a chance to check out that, the Sunday show last week was all about you, all of our viewers. It was a community show. This is something really fun that we've been doing on the show a couple of times now, and that's where we just invite you, the viewer, onto the show as the guest. It's sort of like the old, or not really old, they still do radio shows and things like that. In fact, some other folks do some similar live streams and things like that too. So, but it's been fun. I just hand out the show link for everybody who's watching, and if you have something you want to come on and chat about and growing on in your garden, we give you the opportunity to join with us and talk with us here on the show. And it's been really, really fun now. I think that was like our 3rd time doing that. It was kind of an idea I saw a while back ago, and I tried on our Halloween special that we do each year, and it was really fun during then. So I thought, let's try a regular show for that. And so we kind of did it to fill in some space for a couple of shows, but I thought, let's plan it ahead of time this next time. And we had a great one this last week, and it's really fun to hang out with all of you who watch the show. Again, that's what we're all about here on the Let's Get Growing show, is building community and talking with all of those folks who are doing really awesome things and sharing within the community as well too, to share with all of you guys too. So it was great to hang out with all of you guys for our last Sunday edition of the show. I will real quick let you know though, we did have some great shows the week before though. I do want to mention we did have Dr. Jeff Pierce on with us the Saturday show before, talking about again a great subject he really loves to talk about, gardening as medicine. Dr. Jeff Pierce is a medical doctor, and he has also agreed to come on to the show with us every couple months and hang out with us and talk with us about gardening as medicine. We're going to dig into some subjects and some things and have him on the show here to talk with all of you about that, and maybe even answer some questions for all of you as well too. So that's going to be really fun. We've got our own doctor in the house here on the Let's Get Growing show now too as well. So if you didn't get a chance to check that conversation out, definitely go back and check out that show there too as well. So all right, everybody, it's now time to see who we're following this week. It's time for Are You Following Me?
Are you following me? Are you following me, dude?
All right. And for this week's Are You Following Me segment, we're welcoming you back to this show, Julia Dimakos, the gardening girl, back on the show again. So great to have you back again. Thank you for being here today.
Thanks for having me again.
Yeah, absolutely. Great to have you. I've been looking for opportunities now recently to bring back some folks who've already been on before so we can catch up with them and see how things are growing with them since we've had you on the show last time. It's been a little while though. Tell us a little bit first, maybe reintroduce yourself to folks who are maybe newer to the show and all of that. Let us know a little bit about Julia Dimakos, the gardening girl, and some of the things that you're doing for all of us and sharing in the gardening community.
Well, I don't remember what year I was on in 2023. No, 2022 now.
It was our first year. Yeah. You were
so
probably
in 2022 I was
first
published.
guests.
Was it 2022? Yeah. I became a published author. I wrote Tea Gardening for Beginners. So
yes,
that was really fun.
I do believe it was just shortly after that published.
Okay.
I do believe we talked about that. Yeah.
Yes. So that was that. I'm the so I'm known as the gardening girl. I'm Julia Dimakos, and I've been gardening for going on 15 years, and I'm a no-dig organic gardener. So and I garden in raised beds. I live on the Niagara Escarpment, so I'm northeast. I'm not sure where you are. Are you in Oregon?
Southern Oregon, yeah.
Southern Oregon. Okay. So I'm in Southern Ontario in Canada.
Okay.
And zone 5A, 5B, depending on, I'm not sure if our zones are the same, but that's my climate, and my safe final frost date is around June the 1st. I love growing veggies and primarily veggies, but I also do fruit and I do tea ingredients and all kinds of things, herbs. That's what I do. And I have a blog and I'm on Instagram pretty regularly. I love to share what I grow and what I do and share tips and stuff like that. So hopefully that answers it.
I know. Pretty much. We'll dig into it just a little bit more here.
Okay.
But for sure. That's a great introduction for sure. Someone I've been following for a while. I can't remember, but I know I've been following you for quite a while, as far as the content and things that you put out and everything. So lots and lots of great stuff, like you said, raised beds and that sort of stuff as well too. Organic gardening, probably one of the main reasons why I started following you before, is I'm a real pure gardener myself. Tell us a little bit more about, so again, this was just a couple of years ago, and I know you got a really great garden. It's really, you put some really nice design in it too, your raised beds and everything like that. So let's talk a little bit about that garden and how things are growing this year. I mean, like you said, I'm sure you probably still got some cool season stuff that's kind of waning down as you're looking forward here this next week for your last frost date. I'm
Yeah.
8B, and by the way, as well, because I know you're mentioning that as well too. But I am a little more south. My last frost date is the 15th, so we just passed our last frost date here just the other day, and yeah, and really ultimately, soil temperature is the one thing we really preach the most when it comes to growing our annuals and all of that sort of stuff. So hopefully everything's warming up nicely for you and you're able to be right on schedule there.
We had a pretty rough winter. We haven't had a winter
Yeah.
like this in a long time. But because of where I live and because of my soil, my foundation is limestone, things melt really quickly here. So in the beds, that since they're raised, they thaw quickly and they also heat up quickly. So even though it's, our final frost date, expected final frost date is around June 1st, it works out really well. Like the beds are warm enough to plant things. And then, so we actually had a heat wave this week, which was crazy. So even though there's the cool season veggies, it's been really nice, and we're supposed to get a bit of a cool down now. But I've already started hardening things off. I have a greenhouse as well.
Oh,
And
perfect. Yes.
it does have a little space heater in it, but it's full of all the salad greens, all the Asian greens. It's just jam packed. So I've been harvesting just about daily, and so that's been great. That's a great way for me to extend my season, because my season is shorter than yours. I need to be able to utilize that space or get a longer season. So I start planting in there in March, and then I'm harvesting in April. I start everything from seed indoors, so I'm putting out transplants, and that really saves me a lot of time. I don't do a lot of direct sowing except for like carrots, parsnips, peas in the garden, beans. Everything else gets started indoors. And so things are starting to harden off. My peppers are doing great now. They had because it was, I don't know what happened here inside, but I had aphids for the first time ever on my pepper plants. And I've never, in all the years that I've been growing, I've never had aphids indoors. I've had them in the greenhouse 1 year in the beginning, but I haven't had them indoors. So what did I do? I put them all outside. So, for me, I find that if you have a problem inside, the problem will change when you put it outside. So I put outside, and then, the wind and fresh air and rain washes them all away. So I don't have an aphid problem anymore. So I started doing that more than a week ago. I put them out the first time and I just noticed the aphids. I wiped all the leaves. I cleaned everything. And I have a ridiculous amount of peppers this year. I have like 73 plants, and they're half sweet. Half of them are sweet, half of them are hot. And I don't know what I was doing. I just started them and then I ended up potting them up, and I have 73 plants. It's outrageous. And also 73 plants of aphids. So, but luckily now with them, 1 year I went crazy. Maybe that's why I got the problem. I went too big, too fast. I don't know. But they've been living outside and they've been okay. And, the thunder just, was all over them, thunder and rain, and it's been fine. So the aphids are gone, and they're hardening up.
Great strategy.
So I find that anytime there's a problem, if you can set it outside, you'll probably get rid of it, because the environment inside is different than the environment outside, and outside usually has its own factors that will help things. And so the aphids are gone. So it worked out really well.
Definitely. For like the indoor stuff, if I notice any sort of issues or anything like that, I try to immediately like move it away and isolate it. And if it is warm enough in the season, I will take them outdoors as well. I think that's a great idea. Me more so, I think I did, I didn't really think of it on the sense of like the idea of changing the environment or that sort of thing. In the sense, for me, I was just more like, let's just get it out of here. You know what I mean? I just get it out of here. They don't want it to mess everything else up. I mean,
exactly.
It'll start going rampant if I don't do something right away. So that's usually the mind frame, is I'm literally just like grab and go. Let's just get it out of here. But that makes a lot of sense though too, is that just moving and changing the environment's also going to change the environment for whatever's giving you a problem. And that could become a problem for that, and then kind of solve it as well too.
Because indoors, I mean, I have a fan that works here, but it's not the same. It's nice and hot and humid because the grow lights and all the plants breathing together, you know, it makes it like a perfect environment for aphids to thrive in. So put it outside, that humidity is gone and everything is, you know, like it's just, it blows away, right? Like you know, there's other pests outside that are good bugs that will take care of it for me. Yeah, it's worked out really well. Like I could have put them in the greenhouse, but then I would have introduced aphids into the greenhouse and all my salad greens would have been covered in aphids. So instead I thought either they die out there and I just invest some, you know, go to my favorite nursery near me and buy all the peppers I need, or let's see if this works. And it worked. So I'm really happy about it. Plus, you know, now they're staying outside all night. Like by accident, they got hardened off earlier than I normally would like to because I would start later. You know, I'd start about now, just starting to put them out. But they had no choice. So they've been outside overnight. They're just living there and they're on the east side of my house. So it's kind of a sheltered spot. They're not, so they're not receiving afternoon sun, which is fine. I mean, later on they can. But for now, my main issue is the aphids, and you know, it worked out. So I recommend that. I recommend that to people. I had an oleander in my house that I've been living in my dining room for about 3 years, and it's beautiful. And then I noticed scale. So I was like, okay, either this oleander goes to the dump, or I'm just going to put it outside. And I put it out in April, and people thought I was crazy because it's a tropical, and it's in my front door porch area, kind of sheltered in a way. It's been fine. So the scale is gone. The scale is gone and my oleander is thriving. So
yeah, exactly. Give that a shot, you know, at least, right? Don't just go, this is done for, or that sort of stuff on some things, you know, try that's a great idea when it comes down to it.
As a gardener, you really have to think outside the box, right? If you have to use your experience, and then you have to think like, you just kind of have to work on the fly. Like, what can I do to save the situation? And then just try it. You know, what's the worst that can happen? It dies. You know, you can go buy it. You can start over. Just like you with your tomatoes, you know, they died. You'll have enough time to make more. You know?
There's, you know, they'll be all right. I worry more about the middle of our season, where it's going to be really a lot hotter and hotter than it's been from season on to season. So there's expectations that, you know, it'll be just as hot as it was in the last couple of summers, if not hotter this summer, right? So and in the last couple of summers, I've dealt with a lot of just heat bearing issues on my plants, you know. So, you know, I'm going to do a little more strategies. I'm going to try a little more with shade cloth. It didn't really work too well with where I grow some of them. So I'm going to try to work on something a little bit more to kind of help them out a little bit throughout the season during that hotter time. But that was an issue for me for a while. So I've been trying to get them in earlier strategy. Let's grow stronger plants, get fruit set, you know, before we start hitting some of those heat waves and stuff like that. And I've found successful strategies in doing that. And so then that kind of goes away when you burn all your plants away and you're now forced to bring up younger plants during a hotter time of the season. So we'll have fun with that and we'll see how it goes. And it just gives me an opportunity to learn just a little bit more about, I guess, dealing with that sort of situation. So
right.
You know, ultimately, I love it too. You were also mentioning about, you know, okay, your peppers, you've got a lot of plants. So you have a lot of plants. How many varieties of these 70 plants do you have?
So
Did you set out to grow a bunch of different varieties?
Yes. So, you know, I'm trying to, this year, my strategy is to only grow what we need, or only grow what we eat. You know, I don't want to I'm not growing novelties anymore. I've grown all the novelties. I've grown everything that you can possibly grow. I've grown it in the garden. I've tried it. There's nothing missing. And so now I'm at the point where like, I just want to grow what I need, but we preserve what I can, what I can powder. So no crazy hots. You know, last year I grew one that was 1 million Scoville units. Like, I'm scared to touch it. You know, like, I don't need that. I'm not going to use it. It was fun. It was a novelty, right? To see if I could. So, you know, cayenne peppers. I like to make my own cayenne powder. So, and that's what I've been doing. And I stopped buying it, and it's amazing. It's better than, you know, store bought. I'm growing different jalapenos because I like to make hot sauce. I have some Fresnos, which I like to make fermented hot sauce from. So like that type of heat level No habaneros this
Mhm.
year. Probably up to about 50,000, maybe 100,000 Scoville units of heat. So I'm not
Yeah.
sure how many I have of the hots. Quite a maybe half are hots, but maybe there's only
Yeah.
5 different varieties. But in terms of sweets, I wanted more sweets this year. I wanted more
Yeah.
of like the larger bell peppers because I want
Mhm.
to pickle them, but I also want to do some roasted red peppers,
Okay.
and preserve
Yeah.
that in oil. So I have a bunch of those. I can't even tell you how many. Maybe I have 10 of one and maybe 8 of the other, and then just
Okay.
multiples of
That's
all of
right.
them.
That's a good
Yeah.
decent amount. That sounds about right
Yeah.
where I'm at. That's about right where I'm at. And
Yeah.
very similar strategy. I grow more for what I'm going to consume, and I love different varieties of sweet peppers. Very similar to you, in as far as why and what because I'm gonna use them more, basically.
Right.
I do grow a few of the milder hot ones, but then I always grow some fun ones.
Right.
I always grow some fun ones, and I have friends who are crazy, and they love them as well too. I also have some unsuspecting friends sometimes as well who think that they love hot peppers, and then I'm like, "Have you tried this type of hot?" "Oh, I absolutely no problem." In fact, where our peppers grows is right along the walkway for my neighbor, who's actually my new owner. He owns the place now, right?
Oh,
And so
okay.
it's right along the walkway. And when I had this really hot variety growing the first season he was here, and he was he was one of those kind of guys. Oh, absolutely, I can eat anything. I've got a stomach of steel for hot peppers. I'm like, here, well, this one's pretty hot. I'm just gonna warn you. Before I could really tell him how hot it was, he had already slapped a pod into his mouth and was
Oh
chewing on it.
no.
Oh yeah.
So his stomach
Oh yeah.
wasn't so steely, was it? After all.
Yeah. I was like, yeah. I said the hot peppers, I mean, you get an idea what hot peppers are, or you can eat hot stuff like when you're hanging out with your friends when it comes to certain other hot things you're eating.
Yeah.
Products and hot products are never as hot as the pods themselves. So but anyways, peppers are fun. I love peppers. I can get on and talk about peppers all the time. In fact, I'm putting out a pepper series, taking people along with how I grow my peppers each year.
I have
You
a
know,
question about peppers. Do you
okay.
pinch back your peppers? Do you like pinch the top? I
Now
used to do it, but I don't do it anymore.
I do it. Actually, I do it, and this is the thing. I don't do it in the sense like most people would just pinch and go. I do it for certain varieties that I've grown before. Now, and this is the thing: is I've had to have grown it before and know that the plant is really leggy.
Okay.
You know what I mean? Instead of a
Yep.
big, tall, leggy plant, you know what I
Yep.
mean? I'd rather grow short and bushier. So
Yep.
in that situation, I will top off and cut back my pepper plants, but I'm not doing it in general as a general strategy to grow more peppers or to get my pepper plants bushier, because actually most varieties are going to be pretty bushy and they're going to produce quite a bit, and they will split off and grow off and become pretty decent plants. But there are certain varieties every now and then that I've grown that just have a tendency to grow tall and leggy.
Yeah. Yeah, I know
Once
what you mean.
so and you once you're really in that, notice that it's kind of hard to kind of cut it back and to get it to do anything when it's that far into growing. So I'll just remember, okay, if I'm gonna grow that variety next season, let's make sure we cut it back early, so
Yeah.
that
Yeah.
we're promoting a bushier plant early on, and that's really the
Mhm.
only time I'll do it. And you got to be into your peppers to be kind of doing that. So
Yeah.
I don't generally recommend just topping off your pepper plants
Yeah, I don't
typically.
either. And I used to do it more so, like, I found some hot peppers, like you said, would go more columnar, and I didn't like that. Like, I just found it was nothing but a stick with some leaves on top. In that case, when they're still small, I would then top them. But the sweets never top a sweet. And anyways, they eventually all bush out and do their thing.
They do. It's
Once
really
they're
amazing.
established, they just figure it
Yeah.
out, right?
And there's
So,
something about peppers too that I always find kind of fascinating about them, is that, they have these kind of little phases, and especially when they get going and they kind of get going and the plant just kind of seems to be doing and taking its time. And then all of a sudden one day you turn around and all of a sudden it's just boom, and there's
yes.
flowers everywhere. And it's one of those plants that I just kind of feel like does that. It's just they go through a spurts
Exactly.
versus just consistent growth.
It's so true. That waiting forever and then finally you have fruit. Like what? Like, I turned my back. I was busy for a weekend. What happened? Right?
Exactly. Those are the good turning your backs though, and turning
Yeah.
around into something and
Yeah.
finding out. You don't want to do what I did with my tomatoes, turn your
No.
back and right? I mean,
Absolutely.
really here.
Absolutely.
We want to, but
Live and
again,
learn.
to live and learn. Well, I mean, live and learn is what to say one thing, but then it comes to the point, like I said, I've lived and learned before this same lesson,
Must have been a long time
So
ago
it's
then.
something that I try to actually, I think it's a good lesson for just regular gardeners and especially new gardeners in general.
Yeah.
Is that, even us experienced gardeners will get ourselves, into trouble sometimes with some of the things that we're growing, and, and we can always, again, start off with the best plans. Like I said, I always try to plan my tomatoes a certain way each year, but some years, just some things come up. You got to do it differently.
Right. Exactly.
It's part of gardening and what makes, season to season so much fun.
Exactly. It's so fun. Love it.
It really is. It really is. Right on, Julia. It's great to have you back on again.
Thank you.
We'll have to have you back on sooner again. I'm doing things more with these fun little discussions on our Sunday show and that sort of thing. So I'll look to try to get you back again and get you in on one of those discussions coming up soon too as well.
Yeah, I'd love to be back.
Absolutely, for sure. It's always great to talk to you. Like I said, I've been following you for a long time. And again, it was natural to ask you to help me kind of launch and get this show going and everything. But we kind of got going and rolling along. And I'm like, I gotta get some of these great folks who were back with me at the beginning of this back on the show and get you back in and going. So I'm so glad that you came back to be with us.
I'm happy that your show is doing well too. Good for you. That's like, a lot of work to do this. So I'm very impressed.
Right. Thank you. I really appreciate that. There is some work that goes into it for sure. That's why I think you don't see shows like this and, just out there in general and all that, because there is a lot of work when it comes to putting it together, but it really is ultimately so much fun. It's great to be able to connect with, viewers and folks who watch and participate with the show. But then again, I'm also the fortunate one in the mix of all of this is I also get to, talk with all of you wonderful gardeners who are contributing so much awesome stuff to the gardening community. I feel like I'm just kind of the talking head in the community, and you guys are all the wonderful, master gardeners in a way, sharing all this wonderful garden knowledge and education with everybody. And I'm so fortunate to be able to get you all to come here and share some of that with all of us as well too. So really great on you for being here. Thank you.
Thank you. Thanks for having me again.
Absolutely. And again, like I said, we'll look forward to maybe getting you back real soon and talk more about how those peppers are growing and and see how everything's going later on in the season. So thanks again.
I'll post updates on my Instagram. So if anyone follows me there, they can see what happens later on in the season.
Absolutely. And I bet Jay's probably already got an Instagram link in the conversation. I believe we probably have one down in the description. If not, I do believe we have a link to your website for sure, which I'm sure they can get a hold of that as well too there. But if I have to, I'll try to put a Instagram link down there. And y'all catch up with Julia and see what she's got growing on this season. Thanks again, Julia. We'll see you soon.
Thank you. Thanks.
Hey gardeners, thanks for tuning in to our show today. We'll be right back at it here in just a moment. I just wanted to take a second here to highlight our regular videos and features here on the Urban Gardener channel. Our weekly garden journals, and our incredible featured visits.
The answer to this week's trivia question is D. Asparagus is a perennial vegetable well known for its incredible longevity. Many plants can live for more than 15 years after they were planted, and some have even been known to produce spears for decades. Thanks for watching. Head over to Sarah's Seed Shop where you can find garden seeds at unbeatable prices. Enjoy the rest of the show and have a great day.
All right, all right, all right. I saw most all of you there in the chat. Got Sarah's trivia question right. It was pretty good. It was a pretty easy one this week. She kind of gave us a break this week for sure. But yeah, asparagus plants, we know those things, you get them good and set up right. Those things in a good garden, some good soil, in a good place with some good sun and all of that are going to grow really, really well for years and years and years. I have small spaces and I don't really have like a real location for asparagus, so I've never really been able to grow it really. But I don't know. I want to now that we've got the newer owners and they've got a space in the back right now that we're working on, and I'm thinking about maybe trying to convince them, maybe if we can go ahead and get some started, because it's going to take a few years. That's another bit of the journey with asparagus, is that we're going to get those little plants started in our gardens, the little roots and everything, and then it's going to take them a few years to get really established before we're going to really start seeing some good production out of them. So it's good to get them going as soon as you can if you want to get them in your garden. But once they're going, though, they're going to go for quite a while. I mean, many, many years. 15 years. That's quite a big time, and plus, many, many more if you can really keep that space going really, really healthy. But anyways, thanks again to Sarah for doing our trivia each week here for the show, and go and check her out at sarahseedshop.com and get some of those essential seeds. Always a good time to go and get some really good essential seeds for your garden. Maybe there's a few things you can still directly sow into your garden that she can get out to you here still, especially for a lot of you more northern gardeners as well too. Maybe more of you southern gardeners might want to start planning ahead and thinking towards the cooler season later on, but she's got the best deals on seeds out there that you're going to find. And the best value as well too. You're gonna get a lot for a really good price. You're not gonna find a better price anywhere else, so go check out sarahseedshop.com. Thank you, Sarah, for the trivia this week. And all right, everybody, it's time to get moving on today to our featured guest.
You never know when you might learn something, and that's what this is about for me. These are people that I admire. Please welcome my next guest.
All right. And our next guest is shortly returning to the show. We just had her on the show. She's back already. No, I just wanted to talk about this book just a bit more with her, and we had an opportunity here to get her back real quick from the conversation we just had just a couple of weeks ago. It was our Arbor Day weekend. We were kind of celebrating and talking all about trees, and I got the opportunity to have this wonderful author on our show to talk about this great book, Oaklore, which I'm still digging into and working my way through, but it's got so much great content and talking about aspects of trees in ways that really, she may be talking about trees in the UK, but really, if you're a tree lover, this is really something that resonates for anybody anywhere. Really, this is a great book for people who love trees. So real quick, with a better connection this time, let's welcome back to the show, Jules Acton, author of, again, I said, like, this wonderful book, Oaklore, Adventures in a World of Extraordinary Trees. Thank you, Jules, for coming back to the show.
Oh, well, thank you for having me back. And yeah, hopefully the connection works better this time. And I appreciate you bearing with me. And it's lovely to be back. And I'm loving all the tips so far on the show. I love gardening. So I've got garlic envy. I've got pepper envy.
Right.
Yes.
Like I'm saying, I'm not lying at all when I'm telling you at the beginning, we got a great show ahead for you, man. There's some good stuff. Julia, wonderful, wonderful guest to get us going. And she's got some amazing gardens, and she shares some really awesome stuff as well, too. So a good way to get us started. But I didn't really notice it until after I had both of you booked, but I had Julia and Jules. We just need a Julian or, and someone, like that. And we'll have it all ready to go. But that worked out just great.
Yeah, absolutely. Oh, I know she was great. Yeah, loved her tips. I love the idea of making the cayenne pepper out of your own, the cayenne powder out of your own
That's a
pepper.
great thing to do with hot peppers too. And especially even some real, I use even hotter peppers too. Like I'll get into like the habaneros and make
Yeah,
a powder out of them. And
yeah,
then that way I can kind of adjust the heat that I want. Like, do I
yeah.
want it to be just a little bit of heat with whatever I'm gonna hit, whatever I'm just kind of sprinkling it on a little bit, or do I want it to be really hot this time and then just really load it on? You know what I
Oh,
mean? So you can really kind of like adjust the heat with a good hot one as well too.
that
Another
sounds
thing I'm
brilliant.
having fun with is also hot honey.
Oh,
Yeah, making
really?
hot honey. Yeah, it's
That's
really,
you put the
yeah,
pepper in
that's
the
good stuff as well.
honey. Is it you
Yeah,
put the?
yeah.
Oh, that
Yeah,
sounds
yeah,
delicious.
yeah. You just kind of soak some hot peppers in like some honey. You just cut them up, soak them in there, and then after a while, you just kind of strain them out, and then
Oh,
what you got is a nice hot honey right there.
I
It's really
love that idea. That must be lovely in the winter when you sort of
yeah,
need it
yeah.
when you've got a cold or something. A hot
Yeah,
honey. It'd
yeah,
be
and if you're good too, one other great thing to do with them too is also to get like some peanuts or some nuts or something and honey glaze them with the hot honey.
oh, nice. Oh, I love that.
Oh yeah, there you go. There
It's
you go.
really
We're getting some great ideas going on around here.
because I was thinking the other day, I've got a little chili plant on our windowsill, and which I bought from a shop, but it's fruiting really well now. And
Yeah.
it's like, and they're really hot. I don't know the variety, but I just like it's obviously quite cool here in England.
Yeah,
It's like where it's just really weird where that heat comes from. It's just fascinating, isn't it? Yeah.
it
Anyway.
really is. It really is. Right on, right on. Excellent. Let's see here. I saw a question real quick for you. Our good friend Rob, he's got Rob's Allotment Gardening. Where's that
Oh,
at? There you go. There we are. Rob asked, what part of the UK is Jules in?
hi Rob. I'm in Nottinghamshire, so not far from Sherwood Forest, which I think a lot of people have heard of. Yeah,
Oh,
where
yeah,
there's a
yeah.
great collection of oak trees. Some of
Yeah,
them which
yeah.
would have been growing back in Robin Hood's day, if Robin Hood ever existed.
I know, no, I can't wait to talk about that here too, because you have some good sections of the book talking about this sort of thing as well too. Excellent, excellent. Oh, yes, indeed. Back on the show for sure. This is great because again, too, like I said, we kind of I had another author. We had some things going on for that show previously, but things kind of last minute I had to kind of adjust out, and I reached out to the publisher for that other author, and they recommended, oh, we can get Jules, who wrote this great book, and they sent me out the book, and I started reading it, and then I was like, wow, this is a really wonderful book. And again, like I told you on the last show, it's just well written. You're just such a wonderfully written book
Oh,
about trees. You know what I mean? So if you really, like I was saying in the introduction there, if you really love trees as much as I do, I was telling you before the show got started there that that was my first love really in life. Everybody knows that I got started young. Propagating house plants, everybody who's watched the show previously, but trees were my first real love, and so ultimately, as I was also mentioning too, these we are talking about, like I said, we'll get into Sherwood Forest and that sort of thing as well. We're talking about UK oaks here, but really, if you love trees in general, this is a great book for just tree lovers in general. If you love trees and that sort of thing, because there's so much going on in a tree that we don't really think about, and this book really highlights a lot of it. And we were touching on some of that stuff in our last conversation as well. But real quick, before we do dig into the book, let's talk about leading up to the book. a little bit, you know. What kind of got you going in the idea of writing a book about all of these just really magnificent ancient oaks throughout your country there in the United Kingdom?
I think the main thing that got me going was, well, basically, I work for the Woodland Trust, so I'm sort of very involved with trees in my day job anyway. So the Woodland
Hmm.
Trust is a UK charity which protects and
Yeah, yeah.
creates woodland.
I want to
And
dig
that's sort
into
of,
that a bit more too,
yeah,
as well, for sure.
yeah. And through my job, I heard this incredible statistic that more than 2,300 species are supported by oak trees in the UK. And so that's species being all kinds of things, so birds, insects, lichens, other plants, that kind of thing, fungi, all sorts of things. So all these different species are supported by the oak tree in the sense that the species might live on them or in them or feed off them or perch in them. So that the oak trees support all this incredible ecosystem. And the older an oak tree is, the more of those it supports, and the more of those very rare species it supports. And the other key element of that statistic is 300 of those species, well, more than 300 of those species, could not exist without
Yeah.
the native oak tree species in the UK. So that just astonished me. I just thought, that's immense. And then I sort of went out and I sort of stood under a few oak trees, and you do see, obviously, when you stand under an oak tree, you might see some birds, you might see some spiders and that kind of thing, but you don't
Mhm.
see this flood of hundreds of things necessarily coming out of you. Not like you do in perhaps
Yeah.
a summer meadow, you know, where everything's up in the air, isn't it? It's all whizzing around
Yeah.
you. And oak trees is not quite the same. So it was really during sort of one of those lockdown periods, and it became a bit of a quest, you know, when I could get out, just to try and learn a little bit about some more of these characters that live on and around the oak tree and how they then connect to us and our culture. So it was a little bit of a sort of an oaky nature ramble that I embarked on. And then I met a lovely publisher, the person who founded Greystone Books in Canada, and he said, "Oh, would you write a book about oak trees?" And so that's where it came from.
Oh man, that's great. Well, I'm glad they set you on that adventure too to do that, because again, is the majority of the parts of the book that it's just you've gotten to go and see, and I can't wait to learn about some of these other ones in the rest of the book too, about some of these just really wonderful trees that in each one of them tell their own story. And again,
Yes.
we're talking about ancient trees here.
Yeah.
Now, and I just kind of reflecting back on our previous conversation, as I was saying, we were celebrating trees. I'm from the Pacific Northwest here in the U.S., and lots of big evergreen trees, you know, pines and
Yeah.
and such, and redwoods, and just, you know, and we've got some of the biggest, largest trees in the world just south of me in the Valley of the Giants, where you've got General Sherman and the
Yes.
president, and some of these just a massive redwoods and stuff. So I've grown up around these just massive trees. I love them. They're so fascinating to me. And again, still one of the oldest trees is also I believe here as well too, south of me. But yet we're we as people, though, now not necessarily the trees themselves, right, but we as people, you've only been here where I live in the Pacific Northwest, uh, uh, except for, you know, Native Americans who, you know, been here a lot longer and have lived with these trees probably through most of their existence. But for us, you know, really, there isn't much like history with a lot of these trees, just, you know, 100 years or two, you know.
Right. Yes.
Whereas in this book and what you're talking about with these oaks over there, we're talking about hundreds, if not thousands of years of human history
Yes.
alongside of these trees,
Yes.
which is so
Yeah.
fascinating. To me, that just really fascinates me. I mean, I love our big trees we got here and
Yeah.
that sort of thing. But, you know, we've only, in that context of a tree's life, those trees have only known us for just kind of a short period of their life. whereas your oaks have known you humans, you know, their whole life, or that sort of sense. You know what I mean? I don't know. I'm just kind of going on. It fascinates me as I think about that sort of thing.
It's sort of humbling, isn't it? I think that, you know, if you think, so the classic saying, or there's several versions of this saying in the UK, that an oak tree grows for 300 years, it lives for 300 years, and then it dies for 300 years. So if an oak's really lucky, if it has a really good spell of luck, it will live to 900 years old or even more. We think there are oaks which are over 1,000 years, but obviously it's been quite hard to tell. A, because they're hollowed out, so you can't count the rings, and B, you wouldn't chop them down anyway because they're so precious. So you know, you can't. So a lot of the time, it's sort of we're trying to work it out based on the shape of the tree, the size of the tree, and also historical records. But it is absolutely humbling, and when you start thinking about some of the things these incredible plants have stood witness to, it's astonishing. And I was once at a talk by Jeanette Winterson, the writer, and she was talking about Shakespeare, and he said, you know, Shakespeare lived the half-life of an oak ago. So it's only half the lifetime of a long-lived oak that Shakespeare lived. It's just astonishing. And there's a tree not far from me called the Burthorpe oak, which is one of England's biggest oak trees, which has got a great big girth. It's about 10 meters. And the poet John Clare was writing in 18 something. And he was talking about this tree, and it's astonishing that you can go back and visit this tree. And actually, he was talking about it. He uses words like age rent. It would look quite battered in this beautiful poem that he wrote about it. And actually, you can go and see that tree today. And actually, it's in much better condition than his poem suggests, which is actually also kind of quite, although a lot of our trees are getting a real battering at the moment, there's also sort of quite a lot of, it gives me quite a lot of sense of optimism, you know, to think that you can go and see something that somebody who's wrote beautifully about, who's long dead, you know, was writing over 100 years ago. But now you can see the tree is actually faring quite well. So it's humbling, and it warps your mind a little bit, I think. And we are but guardians of these trees, aren't we? We're just, you know, we're there for a short fraction of their life, and it's up to us, I think, our generations, to do everything we can to look after them, really.
That is really true. I do. I don't know why. I just feel like I really need to clean this up, because I don't think I really described what I was trying to say before. Jay makes a great point here when she's saying, you know, the history of Native peoples in Oregon dates back thousands of years, in California as well, you know, in all of the Pacific Northwest up to Washington and everything, up 14,000 years. So, I mean, these trees have been around people. People have been here. I don't think I described what I was trying to say very well. Maybe, you know, more so in the sense, I suppose, of us more Western culture, you know, in a sense, or whatever. I don't even know what I was trying to say, really. So really the point is that our trees over here have been around people as well too. So I don't think I was describing that very well, but I think it's interesting though too, you know, these oaks and stuff, you know, through some of the more you know, I guess storied history that we have, that I guess a lot of us know about. Again, coming back to Shakespeare, right? I mean, look how long ago Shakespeare was, you know, and there's oaks that are relevant to that in the UK that are relevant to the Shakespearean time as well, right? You know, so I mean, I find that sort of stuff just really interesting.
There's absolutely, and there's another place down the road from here called Grimsthorpe Estate. There's a sort of an old castle, like sort of stately home on there, and they had that was the home was sort of developed or made better during the time of King Henry VIII, and because it was the estate was visited by King Henry VIII, and we just know that he thundered past some of the old trees that we can go and see now, and he would have been within, you know, may have even sat beneath them. He would certainly have been within, you know, meters from those trees. It's astonishing that. But on the American history, it's a really and oak trees. There's a great book. I think it's called The Framework of. Oh, here it's here. I'm just going to get the. Oops, sorry.
No problem.
There we go. It's called Oak, the Frame of Civilization, William Bryant Logan, and he talks about oak trees, particularly in the American context, and how the acorns were used as a staple diet back in the day, particularly before farming.
What was that book again? You have a copy right there?
Can you see it on there? It's gone back to front on the thing. It's called, Oak, the Frame of Civilization, William Bryant Logan. Really good book. You see all the
Oh, awesome.
little notes I've got in it.
Exactly. Yeah, like me and yours. Look at that.
Yeah, exactly.
But yeah, definitely. I'm sure that Jay will probably drop a link, hopefully for us there for that book. Maybe if she can find one as well. If anyone else is interested in that, as far as the states are concerned, and our oaks over here though too. As well.
Fantastic oaks.
Yeah. And so again, too, on that historical context as well, we were also mentioning you live near Sherwood Forest, and everyone everywhere knows the story of Robin Hood and all of that. You want to talk a little bit about that significant oaks in that lore as well?
Yeah, so the Sherwood Forest is home to a collection of really wonderful ancient oaks. So a lot of them are around the 900, possibly 1,000 year mark. And so they would have been growing back in medieval times, when, if Robin Hood ever existed, he would have been riding through the forest. But there's two oak trees that I think are worth mentioning in that context. That there's the major oak, which the biggest and grandest in many ways oak in the forest, and it's enormous, and you sort of stand there and you're absolutely in awe of this wonderful tree, and everybody goes to visit it when they go. But actually, in my mind, it's not the most impressive oak. The most impressive oak, you wouldn't even realise it's an old oak, and it's called the Parliament oak, and it's sort of on the edge of the forest now. And the reason you wouldn't know it's an old oak is because it's hollow to the extent that it looks like 2 or 3 young trees now. And so you just, if you didn't know of anything about it, you'd just assume it was sort of, a little set of much younger oak trees. Right. But it was that King John, who does feature in the a lot of the Robin Hood stories, he held Parliament under that oak, because he used to go hunting in that part of the forest, and he held Parliament under that oak a few times, hence the name the Parliament oak. And he made some actually very horrible decisions under that oak.
Bet. Oh yeah, okay, yeah. So maybe not so great, right?
He was known as the Bad King John, but for a reason.
Oh my gosh.
Anyway, you can read all about that. But what's interesting about it is that, so as well as bearing witness to some of that, some of that history, it also points to the way oaks develop over time, and the fact that oaks, that those species of oaks can be immortal, effectively, if they have a really good set of circumstances. So the way the oak's hollowed out is, as I say, it sort of almost looks like several younger trees. And I was standing by a tree very like that, with an oak expert, and called Jim Mulholland, and I said to him, that's really interesting. At what point do oaks become, when they're hollowed out, are they new trees? Are they individual trees? At what point do they become new individuals, or are they just all part of the same, original? Right. They have the same, or are they still the same original tree? And I loved his answer. He just looked at me and sort of shook his head sort of slightly sadly and said, "Look, Jules, you're looking at things in a very sort of human-centric way." He said, it's very different, immortality is a very different kind of thing. And I thought, well, that's great, isn't it? And I think that's one of the brilliant things about plants, that they, it teaches us, and animals as well, it teaches us to look at life through different lenses, doesn't it? It's not all about we humans, and it's sort of, I think it can give us a different perspective.
Mm-hmm. Yes, most certainly. I really truly do. That's for sure. One of the other things too, kind of going into that, I think there's some other, like I said, I want to go through. I got so many notes in this thing here, but when I talk about, or when I got in, and we were talking about last time about this as well too, about some of these big trees, these old ancient trees in a way too, through their age and through their time, they also build up kind of their own ecosystem.
Absolutely. Yes.
Which is what I think what makes them even more fascinating. So again, I talk about those big old redwoods, right?
Yeah.
And I mentioned last time too, I've got this big poster picture of the president. That they have. I don't know how they accomplished taking the picture of the full amount of this tree, but they did it. They worked it and pasted it together, right, to get the whole thing. It looks perfect, but it's this amazing tree. And but in the article of that, though, the more fascinating thing about it is if you get up in there and you're on some of these limbs, right? It's so big that some of these limbs are as big around as some very big trees that are already just trees, right? And on these limbs over time, they accumulate and build up soil
Yes.
as things break down on them
Right.
and do all of that, over time they build up their own layers of soil to where
Yeah.
plants grow on them.
Yeah.
Some of these other big trees have other varieties and types of trees and small
Yes.
seedling trees growing on them as
I
well too.
love
So there's trees growing within trees. So there's those really fascinating aspects of that. This whole ecosystem that develops in a
Yeah.
tree over all of these years and
Yeah.
generations after generations of different animals, insects,
Yeah.
birds, just all sorts of different things going on throughout a
Yeah.
lifetime of a tree that's just constant. Could you imagine like what a time lapse would have looked like if you could
Oh,
actually look at like 1,000-year time lapse of all of the little things going on and
oh,
developing and moving and
amazing.
doing and changing and going and growing and all this sort of stuff on a tree over that time? But that's really, really fascinating. Ultimately, though, is this whole other just um what would you say micro ecosystem that goes
Yeah.
on right on the tree itself.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And
It's just amazing.
it's absolutely amazing. And the older the tree, the more developed that is. And that's why one of the reasons they're so precious. And particularly with oak trees, there's certain beetles which will only live on ancient oak trees. They won't live on a young oak tree. So if we lose that specific individual, that ancient tree, then, and there's not any more ancient trees within really, really close distance, you're just going to lose those beetles as well. So, they become even more precious as they get older. And actually, I think this is where we as gardeners can come in as well, because to me, it's about, you may not have, well, you may or may not have the space in your garden to plant an oak tree. I mean, a joy if you do. But if you don't, you can certainly treasure and enjoy some of the ecosystem and help some of the ecosystem that lives on and around oak trees. So, for example, bits of dead wood and rot holes are really important in oak trees because they host certain kinds of species, and there's certain kind of beetles which, in their larval state, they only live on rotting wood. But then in their adult state, there might be a beetle that actually feeds on the nectar of flowers. So even though if you haven't got space for an oak tree in your garden, but there's some oak trees nearby, you can still be helping those species by having a really nectar-rich garden. And one of my favorite gardening tips that I was given for the book was by it's a famous TV gardener in the UK called Chris Beardshaw. And his lovely tip is to help nature and oaks and beyond is have a flower in flower every day. And so that sort of helps oaks, it helps the wider ecosystem, I should say, of the oak tree, which I think is lovely.
Yeah, exactly. One of the cool things too, again, in this evolving and moving ecosystem, you talk about, I think towards the beginning of the book is woodpeckers, right?
Oh, yeah.
And creating their own little holes. But I think, what is it? Woodpeckers create new ones each
New
time or
hole.
something like that. So they're leaving behind holes, right? And then you want to talk about that a little bit, what you talk about in the book? Because I found that pretty fascinating too.
Yeah, because they tend to create new holes, each year, and there's a reason for that. That prevents the build-up of pests and things. So they like to have a fresh home to move into. But the holes they leave behind will leave other birds will move in. It can be rodents can move in, all sorts of insects can move in. So they're creating these other wonderful little houses for all sorts of other creatures, which is wonderful. And so they're sort of like they themselves are sort of ecosystem engineers as well. And so that you've got your tree, which is an ecosystem, and then you've got all these other little sort of workers who are actually sort of extending and expanding that ecosystem. At some points creating rot holes, so you go back to your creatures which actually need dead and rotting wood for their homes. So when you start, one of the things that was a joy actually in learning about all these different creatures was you start seeing how everything links up. Everything links up.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
again, it comes back to the importance of us as guardians of nature, really looking after that. Somebody sort of described it to me as nature is a bit like a Jenga, a block. Do you know the game Jenga?
Yeah. Yep. Where you pull and remove and
Yeah.
add on. You're pulling and adding on, but you're removing to
Yeah.
add on. Yeah.
And as we know, nature is under threat. The UK in particular is one of the most nature depleted countries in the world. And
Yeah.
you can only take out so many blocks, so many little individual blocks before the whole thing collapses. And we'd never know when that collapse is going to happen. But we really need to pay attention to that right now. And I think, as I say, we people who love gardening can do a huge amount to help,
Mhm.
and are doing a huge amount to help. I love, by the way, when you're talking about your leaves, and using your leaves as mulch at the beginning of the program.
Yeah.
I love leaves as well. I use them as mulch in my garden, but a lot of gardeners, they feel they must tidy them up, don't they? So they've got a tree in the garden. They've had this urge to tidy, and that is taking away not nutrients, isn't it, for the tree and for other species as well. So much better to either sort of reintroduce them to your garden, or if you have to, or get a mower where you can mash them up and get them breaking down quicker.
Create some sort of regenerative action within your garden space. You know what I mean? Where you're trying to, ultimately, create as many of your own inputs as you possibly can. And I've got a great tree right out front, sheds tons of leaves. My neighbors got them, and my neighbors don't care about them enough. They got lawns and stuff like that, which I appreciate too, which is fine, but they'll stack up those nice bags of them right out front on the street for me and do all the work. All I got to do is go and grab them, so, I got plenty to get and use, and leaves are some of the best kind of like regenerative action you can use in your garden to, help build your soil as well as protect the soil and for all of your plants that are growing in them right now. So I'm really, we're all fortunate to have leaves. To tell you the truth, I don't think there's a gardener out there who's really that isolated away from leaves. I think there's a way we can get a hold of them some sort of way. They're a great addition. My only recommendation is to mulch them down a little bit more. Don't just layer them into your garden as whole leaves. That's a big thing that you want to warn any gardener about when it comes to using leaves in your gardens. But yeah, as you saw, I don't know if you saw there, but you saw a lot of the bare soil there. All of that soil was completely covered in a few inches of mulched up leaves when I started before winter. So it shows you how much they break down and how much worms have come up there and done that. If they've broken down, they're into that soil now, and all I got to do is touch it up and get ready for the next part of the season and protect the soil. It's great.
And I love the fact that it sort of links back as well. I think it's what Julia was saying, doesn't it, about her peppers, that the things that came and ate all the aphids, or some of them may have blown away, but if she's got if you've got your leaves and you've got your trees and you've got all these habitats where the ladybirds are going to come and other insects which are going to eat your pests, so you're kind of actually enriching your garden all the time, aren't you?
Yeah, and that's what we want to be doing, for the best success that we can get. I kind of garden in some harsher conditions along an alleyway, and a lot of these other things, so the best that we can do to create the best soil possible, the best conditions for our plants to grow, the more success we're going to have to go. Let's see here. I think we got a couple of questions real quick. I think I want to make sure I get to before it gets too far. I think Rob was back on. He's like, do you know Bradgate Park?
I've not been, Rob, but I've heard it's amazing. I believe it's got some really old oak trees there. I think it's Leicestershire, isn't it? If I know right, it's not that far from here. I should go. I should definitely go and see it.
You're right. Excellent. I just got to get to the UK in general.
Oh, you have.
That's my thing. I've got to get over there sometime, man. I'm getting to meet more and more folks, our show works really well in the UK, being an evening gardening show there too. So,
Yeah.
that's kind of been something.
Cool.
So there's more and more of a reason for me to make a trip over that way sometime when I get a chance. But I'd love to go check out some of those ancient oaks and everything.
Yeah. I'll show
Jay
you
was
some
asking, which came first, your interest in ecology or
photos.
trees? Or
Oh,
she asking me? I'm not sure, but I'm sure this for you, right?
um,
Both of us. Trees were first for me. I mean,
yeah.
they were my first real love of the natural world, getting to go out hiking in the Pacific Northwest when I was a really young kid, or to go out and do a lot of folks work out in the woods and places and things like that. So camping, things, all sorts of things. I got to participate out in these just magnificent forests, and so trees were just these magnificent killer trees when I was young were my first favorite thing for sure. But what struck your interest in the plant world first?
Gardening, actually. So
Yeah.
when I
Oh,
was,
great.
yeah, and I got to love ecology without, I didn't know the word before I knew the word,
Right.
because I was really little. So and
Pretty
then
much,
there was
yeah.
a very significant tree, which I'll get to. But we moved house when I think I was about 7 or 8, to a house with a fantastic south-facing garden and lovely rich soil. So I'd never really known much about gardens before then. And I said to my father, could I have a little gardening patch? So I had my own little plot, and I quickly outgrew that because I loved it so much. And I think just developed my love of plants and insects, and all through that, just sort of hands in the soil as a little girl growing carrots and things like that. But in the garden as well, there was, and still is there, my mum still lives there, there's a beautiful apple tree, a cooking apple tree. Have you heard of a Bramley apple? Bramley apples? So
That
you,
sounds familiar. I can't say
yeah,
for sure whether I've had or
okay.
eaten any for sure, but I've tried lots of different varieties of apples.
Right,
Yeah.
so Bramley apple. So this is an amazing tree. So it was a very big old tree in my parents' garden, and it's a Bramley apple tree, and I used to go and sit in the branches of that tree and just, when I needed to, just have a moment to myself. But it produced these beautiful cooking apples called Bramley apples, and our Bramley apples were they were developed just down the road in a place called Southwell, and there's a little girl that planted I think she sowed it was from a pit. And she grew this fantastic tree, which then became known as the Bramley apple tree. And the original Bramley apple tree is still there down the road in Southwell, just about 5 miles from here. And we think our Bramley apple tree may have been from a cutting or something from that tree. So
Wow.
and they're sort of perhaps here in the UK, they're perhaps the best known cooking apple. But it was lovely. There was a little girl who actually developed that tree.
Nice.
But that tree's led to more adventures recently. So somebody was asking me I was doing a book talk in a bookshop one day, and somebody said, "What's your favourite tree?" I said, "Actually, it's not an oak tree. It's actually a Bramley apple tree." And I was talking about this tree. So, but I'm a bit worried about it because it's really old, and we've just lost 2 massive branches. They fell in the winter. A bit worried. It's looking like it might be on its last legs, and I need to learn maybe how to graft it or something like that.
Yeah.
And this couple came up to me afterwards and just said, "Oh, we've been grafting apple trees. Do you want us to show you how?" So this winter, they were very generously sort of showed me how to graft apple trees. And so that's I've added it to my sort of little gardening repertoire now, grafting trees, which is great fun. Really good.
Yeah, grafting is something I've got to get into more. I think I'm going to do my first test of my skills on this. Hopefully soon, I'm going to try to locate a new pear tree. I've got a lot of different container fruit trees.
Yeah.
So we've got some apples out back. I've got peach, pear, figs. But the pear tree, it was recommended to me to get a second tree to help with pollination.
Yeah.
So I'm going to get a second tree, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to put limbs or graft some limbs of each tree on each other as well
lovely.
too. to
That was
kind of
such
really help promote it even more. So that was kind
yeah.
of recommended to me too. Again, we had Tom Spellman from Dave Wilson Nursery the day after we had you on, talking all about fruit tree care and all that. So that's something I kind of learned there. So I'm looking to get myself set up with a new pair. Although I did move, and I'll say this to kind of continue from that conversation for anybody who was watching that, is that I did move my pair to the back patio just as it was setting fruit, and it's held on to fruit longer than it ever has. So I've got fruit on it still. So I've got my
Fantastic.
fingers crossed. I've got my fingers crossed on it, but I'm still going to go ahead with getting the second one as well too. So just to
Yeah.
be sure, because that was recommended for that.
Yeah. Oh, that sounds great.
Yeah. Right on. Let's jump back in here. We were touching on this other one that I found very fascinating, and I just actually kind of learned about recently too. And we were talking about this a little bit on the last conversation as well. Is I remember going out on a hike not too long ago, and I was with this guy who's just massively knowledge. He's like the perfect type of hiking guide type of guy
Yeah.
you want to go. He could point to things and tell you where. His real specialty though was like mushrooms and fungi and stuff. So
Ooh,
he was
lovely.
really pointing out some really cool mushrooms, fungi, and everything was really cool. But I was walking along and there was this little round ball on the ground, and I went and I picked it up, and I'm like, this is really what it is, like wood. It's what it
Yeah.
and they've been around me. I'm sure I've probably seen them before, all that sort of stuff. But this was my first real kind of like, what in the world is this? And he was telling me that this was a gall. And
Ah,
that there are all sorts of trees and all sorts of things and galls and all that sort of stuff. And
yeah.
this was a really decent sized one too.
Yeah.
And really woody, and I was like, wow, that kind of really fascinated me, and I hadn't necessarily thought about that too much until I got to that chapter in your book where you're talking about galls and the gall wasps
Yeah.
that are found on these oak trees. You want to tell us a little bit about that, because this leads to really fascinating history though too, right?
Yeah, it does indeed. So I've got two here. Can you see those?
Oh,
That's
there you
the
go. Okay.
yeah, okay.
Yeah.
So they are marble galls, which are found on oak trees. And can you see? So they're about the size. You can see they're quite woody. They're
Yep.
about the size of a
Hmm.
marble, probably a bit smaller than the gall you found
Yeah.
because there's lots of
If
different
you
kinds
want,
of
you
gall.
could try to like put them closer towards the lens of your camera.
Oh,
If you want, put up. There you go.
oh,
Oh yeah,
sorry.
there you go. Look at that. There you go, right there. You see those, everybody?
And can you
Perfect.
see the little holes coming
The
out?
little holes, yeah.
So about the size of a marble, and then it's also they're marble galls. Now these little tiny things changed
Yeah.
history. So that little hole is where a tiny wasp comes out. So a little wasp grows in the middle of here, and its larvae grows in the middle. And when it grows into an actual wasp, it then makes its way out of the gall. So
Yeah.
the amazing thing about these is that they are made. The wasp lays an egg in the bud of the tree, and then there's a chemical change takes place. So it chemically changes the shape of the tree to make these things. So they're not made mechanically; it's a chemical change. So and nobody quite understands how they're done. But what's incredible is the wasp. They're tiny little wasps. They're not like the sort of the black and white stripy things that eat your ice cream. They're tiny little wasps which don't sting you. I say the larvae grows up, and this provides so shelter and food for the larvae, and then it makes its way out. The reason they changed history and that tiny little type of wasp changed history is these were used for about 1,000 years to make ink, right until the 1950s in much of the Western northern world. And these are the things that, so you crush them up and you mix them with various things, including sort of iron. You can use bits of iron, like iron filings or what have you, to make the ink last. But oak gall ink was, say, used for 1,000 years, and it was some of the most important documents in history were written made on ink, like written in ink made out of these kind of things. So the American Declaration of Independence from Britain, the Shakespeare's plays, Newton's theories, all these, and our museums and archives are full of these incredible documents which were made from ink. which was produced because we have these tiny, tiny little wasps which make galls
Yeah.
on oak trees. And so that has led to the spread of learning and education throughout the land. So I think
Yeah.
that they're absolutely incredible. And the oak has these galls, but it has lots of different kinds of galls as well.
Right. Yeah.
Caused by wasps and other insects. The other very significant one is the oak apple, which looks like a little tiny shrunken apple, and that they've got a very strong link with history and culture.
Yeah.
So to tell you the story, I probably need to step back a couple of paces. I might have told you this last time. Stop me if I told you the story last time I was on. So when we had, do you remember that there was a civil wars in the UK, and it was like, so when the Parliament, there were royalists on one side, so the king and everybody, and then there was parliamentarians, Oliver Cromwell's gang basically, who were warring. And the king was deposed, and his son was trying to fight back to win the crown, and he had a horrible drubbing at a battle. I think it was in Worcestershire.
Was this Charles?
Yeah. So
Charles the First was the one that was ousted.
Yeah, that's
and
right.
And then his son was his son Charles the Second, or was it? Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, exactly right. So he became Charles II later on. So before he became crowned, before he became king, he was fighting for his throne. Had a bad battle, and he went into hiding. And he went to this. He and his soldiers went to a safe house, somebody they knew, called Boscobel House. And one of his soldiers, a chap called William Careless, great name, William Careless, remember that? He suggested the king didn't hide in the house because it's too obvious. So he said, let's hide in that great big oak tree outside. So they hid in this oak tree all night whilst the parliamentary soldiers were roaming around underneath. And the king apparently had his lap on, head on Careless's lap on a cushion. And they stayed in there all night, and they escaped. They went to France, rebuilt their forces, had all sorts of adventures, then came back, and the monarchy was restored. And when the monarchy was restored, there was a day of celebration was declared throughout the land, 29th of May. So we're not far off. And it was called, and it was some people, basically everybody had massive parties. Okay. And people at these parties, they would wear oak leaves or they would wave oak branches. And because it was celebrating the fact that the tree saved the king.
Yeah.
And if you were really cool, you had your oak branches had lots of oak apples on them, and they the sort of coolest kids at the party, the ones with the oak apples. And if you weren't cool, and you'd forgotten to bring an oak leaf or an oak branch or an oak apple, everybody else was in their rights to whip you with stinging nettles. I mean, they were kind of parties. So they became known as Oak Apple Day, 29th of May. It was just a massive excuse for everybody to get absolutely drunk on cider and then behave really badly. I think we should bring it back, not to behave badly, not to whip people with nettles, that would be terrible, but I think we should bring it back as a celebration of nature, because wouldn't it be great if we all just ran around and party?
No, really, in that element of it too, it just kind of shows you, kind of how the thinking goes in those times versus today, you know what I mean? That they know and can see the importance of certain things is relevant to their history of that time. Another thing I found interesting about that story, as you were telling in the book though too, is about again, these are called the Royal Oaks, right? Okay, so the Royal Oaks now are also what do you say in here? They number at 421 at recent count, and that are pubs named Royal Oaks, right, in the UK.
So they were again
that still persists to this day, right?
Yeah, there are over 400 when I last looked on, and loads of them. And again, back to the celebration of the restoration of the monarchy due to the oak tree, and you know what we Brits like, any excuse for a drink. So there's we've still got all these pubs called the Royal Oak for that reason.
Yeah, that's great. I thought that was kind of a fun little caveat to that whole fun story and everything. But again, back to the real quick, just to kind of emphasize a little bit more before moving on that. But the ink and the and those galls and everything, which was I found again too. I love history. People
Yeah.
who have watched the show also know that we've had some cool historical authors. We had Marta McDowell on a little while back ago to talk about her book, All the President's Gardens. So we talked about kind of American history through the White House gardens and stuff like that. I love that sort of historical aspect of stuff, but I found it really fascinating that here's some of these really important historical documents, maybe, really worldwide, in one of them right now. And again, we touched on this just a little bit as well too, and I don't want to get too controversial for anybody out there and everything, but one of our real basic rights was developed through a document called the Magna Carta.
Yes.
And the Magna Carta was written with ink
Yeah.
from these oak galls, you know what
Yes.
I mean? And that's our right to due process.
Yes.
You know what I mean? And for anybody, I don't, again, not to go into any direction and how anybody thinks about that, but this was all the way back in what, the 15th century, somewhere around there. I mean, we're talking hundreds of years ago that we go back to this basic right that we all really rely on
Yes.
in this world. It comes from that Magna Carta back then, and that idea that people could have due process. And how important is that that idea that was written on ink, you know what I mean? The ink that they were using, and again, for us here in the States as well too, I've been to the National Archives in Washington, DC, and sat there and looked at our Declaration of Independence, I've seen that actual document, firsthand, and it's for us here in the States, that's very important to us. It's a big one, maybe not as much I know it's different as far as history today versus then, but you know what I mean? The Declaration of Independence, again, ink from this oak gall, you know what I mean? Historical importance to some of the principles that were founded within those documents, though, you know what I mean? And the things that we really should have a better understanding of today. And again, too, I just think, I think it's so fascinating that we can look at those things and go back to plants and how plants are important to our lives, and even that aspect of it, not just the ink itself, but what it was being used for.
Yeah, and it's the spread of ideas. It's just so, and the capturing of ideas. That independence is absolutely vital, isn't it? And it's the plants, but it's also, I love the fact that this wasp is about 1 to 1.5 millimeters long. I think something like that. Okay, it's this tiny thing. You wouldn't even notice it, or you might spot at it, and you just think that tiny creature is so significant to us, to we humans, and it just makes you think, what else are these? One of the things about writing this book is that I learned a lot, but it just made me realize how little I know. How it made me realize all the things I don't know, and what impact all these plants and insects are having on our lives, or could potentially have on our lives. And that isn't their only value. It's not just because their values, they have value for us as human beings. They do, but they also have, of course, their own intrinsic value. It's not just about us and our relationship with them, is it? But it just makes you think that, you think something looks insignificant, and yet actually it's not. It's really, really important.
Exactly. Real quick correction here, Jay. Thank you so much. She's always on top of it. I love it. But Magna Carta was early 13th century, even further back. I mean, look how long it was. You know what I mean? First document to put in writing the principle that the king and his government was not above the law.
There's a copy right down the road from here in Lincoln Cathedral. I think they made 4 copies, or there's 4 copies that still exist. I can't remember which. But one of the original copies is just literally down the road. It's like it's like a little vaulted room where you go in, and it's like low lights, and go and have a look at it like you can I
Oh yeah.
imagine the Declaration of Independence is a similar
It's
scenario.
very, yeah, oh yeah, it's very
Wonderful.
secure. You got to go from one secure room into
Yeah.
another secure room, and then you get to walk by this. You get to walk by through in groups. Small groups can walk by in little groups at a time to go through and to walk by, and you get a. They give you a good amount of time to sit there and look and check it out and do all that sort of stuff. But it is in this. If anybody's seen National Treasure, who is that? Nick what's his name, famous actor, he did a movie called National Treasure. They kind of show the mechanisms and the kind of, and I'm sure there's probably some Hollywood in a bit of it, but it really looks that way, the way it is in the movie.
Let's watch that one.
It really does look that way. When you see it, you can tell that it's enclosed. It probably goes down into a safe room somewhere. It's all you can tell it's mechanical or mechanized, and it's very interesting to see how they've got that stored. But the coolest part is just like being able to just see that document and that it exists and it's preserved for us to be able to look at like that and everything too. So again,
wonderful.
Yeah, it's again huge important parts. Oh, thank you, Rick. Nick Cage. It was such a simple one. I knew that's probably why it slipped. It's probably why I slipped my tongue. Nicolas Cage did that movie National Treasure, but it shows you the National Archives and where the Declaration of Independence is and all that stuff. And I've been there, and it's really great and really awesome too. Though again, talking about the States here, but visiting DC is so fun, and all of that stuff is free.
Wow.
Everything, all of the Smithsonian museums. There's like 10 or more of them around the city, the National Archives, Congress, the White House. All of that stuff doesn't cost a dime. You just got you got to get on waiting lists, so you want to plan ahead. But you can go see all of that stuff. It's all free for the public to go check out and stuff, and some really amazing things to do. And I don't think people think about a lot of that stuff. You go on vacations and things cost a lot, everywhere you go. But Washington, D.C. is really one of those ones where all you got to do is fly there, get yourself a place to stay, and then you can go and see almost everything for free. You know what I mean? It's a nearly, other than getting there and staying, cost-free vacation. Anyways, wonderful book. While we got you here, though, let's. I just want to say again to everybody, literally go check out this book. Buy a copy, get a copy, however you can. Go steal one from the library if you have to. I don't care. Get yourself a copy of this book. It's amazing. It's wonderful. And again, like I said, I'm not book heavy right now. I got a lot of books on my shoulders right now, reading and everything. So the way things worked out, I am getting to, and I'm going to finish and get through the rest of this because it's really amazing. Wonderful stories, so many amazing, interesting things going in and around. We could talk so much more about those gulls even, because like the woodpeckers, I think there was a little part where even in the gulls, it becomes a whole nother little hiding hole home for all sorts. It's just amazing, these little micro ecosystems, you know what I mean? And that just fascinates my mind so much. And we could talk for hours about that stuff.
We could, and I love the fact that there are people who are experts in those things, who are really sweating that small stuff. And we need more experts, studying galls and fungi and lichen, because there's so much we don't know about them.
Yeah, exactly. So like I said, everybody, go get yourself a copy of Jules' book, check it out. And then, like I told you last time, Jules, whatever you write next, make sure you let me know, because I'm going to read it. I don't care what it is. You write a wonderful book. And if you're not writing anything right now, I encourage you to go find something to write about. Okay, let's talk about the Woodland Trust.
Yes,
something that you're involved with there in the UK. Tell us a bit more about what goes on there.
Yes, so the Woodland Trust is the UK's largest woodland conservation charity, and it does three things really. It protects precious woodland, it restores woodland, because a lot of our most precious ancient woods are quite damaged, and it creates new woodland, alongside also helping protect ancient trees as well, sort of campaigning around those. It's an absolutely wonderful organisation. I've worked there for 9 years, and I'm incredibly passionate about the work we do, because for two reasons really. One, our our ancient woodlands and our ancient trees are hugely under threat, and they're really important for our own existence, apart from as well as the wider nature. And two, we are, as I mentioned before, we live in one of the most nature depleted countries, and we are very tree poor. We're very tree poor in tree cover.
Yeah.
So we need to get more trees in the ground. We've only got 13% tree cover across the whole of the UK, compared to, if you compare it to sort of most European countries, they've got more than 30%. Some of them go up to like 36%. So we need to get more trees in the ground. That's so it's what we do is absolutely fundamentally important, and it's and of course this is all, it's all about the air we breathe. You know, this is about our future as well as our past. So yeah, I would encourage people, if if you're interested, do go and check out their website on woodlandtrust.org.uk. We've got lots of supporters in America, so a lot of people see that as connections, which is wonderful. So if you'd like to join in, you'd be most welcome. It's a lovely, warm, embracing family, woodland family.
Yeah, definitely. I got a link right down below in the description for everybody if you want to go and check out the Woodland Trust. And again, too, as well, you can find a copy of Oaklore as well down in the description there too, as a link for that. But no, I mean, one of the things that this is, and again, too, I try not to get on too many of these rants about how things are going or where we're going in the directions or of certain things when it comes to political situations, but those sort of things play an important part when we're talking about our forests, when we're talking about our lands, when we're talking about preservation of the most vital spaces that we have left. And what you're talking about too, and again, it also comes back to a little bit of what I was talking about with, like the age of trees and us over here versus you guys over there and stuff, is that in England, you guys have been populating and in populated cities and, all around in England for hundreds and hundreds of years, that sort of thing, and depleting forests and doing that sort of stuff over a really long period of time. And you're starting to you're an example of what that sort of thing does to other places that we could see even here in the States or other parts as well too, if we allow for, and I'm just going to say this as a part of my rant, is if we allow for these large scale billionaire corporations to continue to utilize our public lands for their own profits, we might think there's advantages for us in there somehow. There's not in the long run. All we do is lose our spaces, we lose our trees, we lose the things that become important to us, not just us, because we're only here now.
Yeah.
What the important thing is that we're leaving behind these ancient trees, these new wonderful trees and forests and things like that as well too, that we're preserving for our generations in the future. And whenever we're thinking about something today, we've got to think again too, and then we'll get back to something we should learn from Native American cultures or native cultures around the world, is a connection to nature and how important that is to how we exist here on the one and only home we have, this planet Earth. That it's vital to have trees. It's vital to have forests, to have an Earth that provides an ecosystem that we can even exist on. Right? Rant over. But it's really important. And if I get political on anything, I don't care where anybody sits anywhere, fight for that stuff. I don't care where you are. You have to fight for that stuff, because it's not important for us here. It's important for the future of us in general.
We need nature, and nature needs us. We can't afford to just allow it to be destroyed. And one of the things that we're doing at the Woodland Trust is working to reconnect up landscapes. So if you kind of link up the landscape sort of with whether it's through sort of woodlands buffering or wild habitats buffering, protecting each other, whether it's through hedgerows, what have you. And I think that's something else actually we all as gardeners can help with, can't we? Because we can link up green spaces where we can, leaving little holes at the bottom of fences if we can, so that wildlife can pass. We've got a real decline in hedgehogs here in the UK, but if we just link up our gardens, we can they and amphibians and other species can kind of come and go and be much more resilient. So I think we can do so whilst at the Woodland Trust we're doing that on a grand scale, I think we can also play our own role in play our own part as gardeners, I think, and back to the sort of
Yeah.
Having pollinators as well, encouraging those pollinators, etc.
Yeah. In the larger aspect, outside of, and when it comes down to it, um, outside of cities and these spaces that are wood or woods or forests, or again in some ways spaces and places that we can reforest if we can,
Yes.
in some sort of senses as well
Yeah.
too. We need to be looking at those sort of aspects. But a big thing that in fact we had a guest on recently, another guest from the UK, I'd love for you to connect with, but green spaces within cities. Again, talking about
Yeah.
populated areas.
Yeah.
England's full of
Yeah.
really populated areas.
Yeah.
We had on the show a few weeks back Jason Williams. He's got a channel he calls Cloud Gardener. The
Oh,
Cloud
right.
Gardener UK. His name's Jason Williams, and he just got one of those fellowships, the Churchill Fellowship, and
Wow.
was given a grant to go travel to a few different countries to learn about green spaces within cities, and how they're successful at utilizing and doing that, and what are some strategies that folks in the UK and other places as well too. It's just basically what cities, maybe more, I guess, in the long run in our conversation, we thought of really in the long run is how the West can do things similar to what they're doing in the East.
Yeah.
In a sense, because he did some visits throughout China and Thailand and some other places as well too, to look at green spaces. And that's an important thing as well too, because we're not going to stop populating places. We're not going to stop encroaching things. That's just really an unfortunate part of our growth as people that we're going to have to fight back and do what we can with. So it's going to be real important that certain people play a huge role in our urban areas in re-greening or keeping green spaces, holding on to green spaces, or in it, like reforesting other forests, maybe finding lots and places within urban areas that we can, build up, food forests or other types of garden aspects and green areas that people can utilize, and also connect with nature within an urban area as well too, which is also a big part of why we want to keep nature around, is that we can to connect with it. Right, because that is really important,
and it provides it helps us regulate temperatures and all sorts of things as well, doesn't it? And our air quality. There's a great program that American Forests started off called Tree Equity, and they've actually basically they've created a website where you can put in your place name and you can see how you're doing in terms of tree cover. And this is in urban spaces, tree cover next to sort of other nearby areas, and they've helped the Woodland Trust develop a similar website for the UK. And it's a really good tool, because I think if you go in there and you think, oh, people are going to hopefully be motivated to think, well, we haven't got much in the way of tree cover, and yet actually, if we have more trees in these urban sites, it can help with pollution, it can help with shade on hot days, etc. It can help with our health. I think it's going to be really motivating. So that's something that's really I really recommend everybody looks up, because it's also fascinating. And I'm also really encouraged to see, some places people stopping using herbicides and pesticides. And there's a great, actually I can show you, there's a great book called The Secret Life of a Cemetery, which is just out by the same publisher as me, Greystone. And it's all about, the cemetery Père Lachaise in Paris, in France. I don't know if you can. It's a big famous cemetery, and loads of famous people. Jim Morrison of the Doors was buried.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
It's amazing.
I was a big Doors fan, believe me.
Oh, well, there you go. If you come to Europe, there's another place you must visit.
Tell you a little bit of just saying that right there. Tell you a little bit about my youth.
Yeah, absolutely. A great band. And anyway,
for sure, absolutely.
Yeah. And they, back in that cemetery, this famous cemetery, they stopped using herbicides. I think it was back in 2014.
Okay, yeah.
And then, of course, the wildlife just starts flooding back. And the chap who actually runs the cemetery is called Benoit Gallo, and he's written a book called The Secret Life of a Cemetery. And again, I'm sure some of your readers, some of your listeners would love it, because it's all talking about sort of how things connect up and the importance of wildlife and nature too.
Yeah, it really is. It truly is. And that's why ultimately, organizations like Woodland Trust and many others that we have here in the States as well. More and more folks and people writing books and talking about and highlighting the importance of, trees and nature in general, all of this sort of stuff, because again, nature is really important to have, really. I don't know necessarily. I think maybe we can get an idea when we look at some parts of society what it looks like when there's a disconnection. You know what I
Yes.
mean? And I don't
Yeah.
think that's where we really want to be. I don't think anybody really wants to be there. You know
No.
what I mean? And that's why it's important that we connect and keep that connection, no matter how much we continue to build and grow. It's so important.
It's so important. And I think as gardeners, we know that it's almost magical, isn't it? You know, the moment you see the seedlings pop above the surface of the soil, it's like that.
Yep.
It just never fails to be really exciting and almost, and it's like, where does that, just like, how does that happen? Just blows your mind, doesn't it, when you start thinking about it? And the same if you're out in a woodland in a forest or a bluebell wood. Oh my God, everybody should see a bluebell wood once a year. It's just, so uplifting. And, you just intrinsically feel better, don't you, when you've been in the forest? It's incredible. I wish it on everybody. And I think that if everybody just had access, is able to, to access sort of woods and trees regularly, I think the world would be a better place. And one of the things about the Woodland Trust is that all of our woods are free to access. We care for more than 1,000 across the UK, and it's an absolute vital principle for us because we want everybody to be able to experience that.
Yeah, and it is essentially important, as we're saying, when it comes to all of that, and ultimately, the more we can do, the more we can find ways to support and do that sort of stuff, the better, when it comes down to it. Because again, there's as far as the future is concerned and our connection with nature, it's going to be really important that people, stand and do things and make sure that we're holding on to that, because it's really important. We talk about all those sort of aspects of that, as far as what gardening and growing can do for us. You know what I mean? It's one of my biggest recommendations that, I do it. I have a stressful day. I mean, I get out and play with some plants, get my hands in the soil, do that sort of stuff, so I'm always recommending as a stress reliever, again, this idea of connecting with nature is to go out in the garden and start participating with the plants and do that sort of stuff. And that'll help relieve a lot of stuff. But the next best thing, or some might argue might be even a further first best thing. I mean, we could argue back and forth on this all day long. I'll do it. But, is going out and having a hike in nature amongst the trees and in the woods and the forests, if you can find them, and do that sort of stuff as well.
Do both. Find inspiration one to the other.
Exactly. Right. For sure. Well, excellent, man. And so great that we got a great connection, and we got to have you back here on the show to talk about this again too. Again, wonderful subjects and all that sort of stuff. And I'm sure, again, as I tell everybody, I'm sure we can find a way with some of our other discussion shows that we do, maybe on Sunday or something like that, have you back on and talk more about maybe some of these subjects and these sort of things. What might even be really fun though too is to get you and Jason together. Maybe that's what we should do for a Sunday show sometime.
Yeah, I'd love that.
Get you and Jason together, and we can talk about green spaces and the importance of promoting gardening in cities and urban spaces and stuff like that, as well as trees and our other woodland spaces as well too. Like I said, that little back and forth, that would be fantastic. It's all really, really incredibly important, and just a wonderful conversation. Wonderful book. Again, everybody, link down below. Get yourself a copy of Oaklore. Go check out the Woodland Trust and all of that as well too. And again, Jules, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to finish up the show. If you got a few more minutes, hold on there, and then I'll finish up here and everything, and then we'll chat about something else here in just a minute. But thank you so much for sharing all of this and getting to have this great conversation today.
Thank you.
You betcha. Thanks again. All right, everybody. right, there we go. There we go. Did I not? I told you the truth. Did I not tell you at the very beginning of this show that we were going to have a really, really great show for you today? I knew it. I could tell when we were trying to have that discussion. You could go back and check that out if you want to check it out. We did have a really great conversation with Sarah from Sarah's Seed Shop and everything too on that show as well too. So you go back and check that out if you want as well. But I knew from what that little bit we got to have in that discussion with Jules that it was going to be great to have her back, and so wonderful to talk about these trees, talk about this just really great book. Again, Oaklore, links down below for a copy of this book. Get yourself a copy. You will not regret it. It's really, really great reading. And check out the Woodland Trust down below as well too. And again, thank you to Jules today. Thank you also as well to Julia Dimakos for jumping in and joining with us today for our Are You Following Me segment today. It was really great to be able to catch back up with her and have her back on the show again as well too. And also, again, like I said, we are here every Saturday and Sunday on the show here every 11 a.m. Pacific time, 2 p.m. Eastern time. And again, too, I said we got plenty of people I see, and they're showing up every all the time here from the UK. I believe that is 7 p.m. BST, if I'm correct. That's British summertime. So that would be 7 p.m. BST. We should add that on there, I think. We've got enough folks from the UK and everything, too. We should probably add that onto our little banner we've got there and everything. But we're here every Saturday and Sunday. So that means that we're back here tomorrow for our Sunday edition of the show. And again, we've got, again, it's basically an author week for us. Julia's written a great book on tea gardening. You know, we've got Jules today wrote a great book called Oaklore Adventures and Extraordinary Trees Around the World. I messed that up. I know I did. But anyways, tomorrow we've got another amazing author here tomorrow for the Sunday edition of the show, because it's the third week of the month. And on the third week of the month, we do our monthly gardening book club. And this month we've been highlighting on our book club this really great book by Craig LaHoyer. I hope I got his name right. LaHoyer. We're going to have to make sure I get that right somehow before he gets here, I suppose. But he wrote this really great book, Epic Tomatoes. It's been out for like 10 years now. I've seen this on the bookshelf for many years. I've wanted to get it because it looks so wonderful. I have sat at the bookstore before, flipping through the pages before. I've done that. But I finally got myself a copy because Craig's joining with us on the show for our Book of the Month Club tomorrow, Sunday edition of the show. That means we also have our good friend Mark Boucher-Colbert with us, Mr. NBC, in the garden with us live, because he's here with us live as he's our co-host for our monthly gardening book club. So that's going to be really awesome for tomorrow's show. So definitely come and join with us. We'll announce our June selection as well too at the end of the show. So another reason why you don't want to miss or watch until the end, or at least checking out to the end on our book club, because we're going to announce next month's book selection at the end of the show next week as well too. Also, next weekend on the show, we've got with us again another author. We're going to talk about another book. We're going to talk about another author. It's maybe an author month for us, basically. But we've got Joseph Lofthouse coming with us next Saturday. He's going to join the show. I've met up with Joseph several times over the years. Me and Joseph have hung out. We've talked. We've met up with each other in person several times over the years at the National Heirloom Exposition down in California that Baker Creek Heirloom Seed Company puts on. And so we've met up many times. We've got him on the show to talk about land race gardening. He wrote a book about it, but we're going to talk in general about seed saving, land race gardening, and how to preserve and save seeds, based on your climate, your area, and growing the best varieties for your garden. So that's going to be really fun, as well as we'll have with us the Suburban gardenista. She's going to join with us on the show. She's been in our chat several times too. Every now and then I see her in the chat. So she'll be joining with us live for Are You Following Me next Saturday on the show as well too. On Sunday edition, we're going to have a fun roundtable with New Garden Road, and the garden nerd Michael Overstreet will be joining with us as well too for a fun gardening conversation on our Sunday edition garden roundtable next Sunday. Lots and lots and lots growing on here on the Let's Get Growing show. I'm telling you, you're going to find fun, great gardening, deep, fun, entertaining conversation in the gardening like you're going to find right here on the Let's Get Growing show. So definitely make sure that you're joining with us here, like I said, each and every Saturday and Sunday, 11 a.m. PST, 2 p.m. EST, and 7 p.m. BST right here on the Urban Gardener channel. And if you can, before you head out, click that like button, hit the thumbs up for sure. Click the subscribe button as well as the bell notification to be notified of all of our upcoming videos and live streams. I've got more videos in our pepper series coming up. Just released one. We got some garden journals coming your way as well too. And share with all of your garden friends. It's a lot. I mean, running all this down, but share with all your garden friends and your garden groups, garden clubs, and all of that. Let them know about all the fun, great conversations and all of these wonderful garden communicators that we get to talk to here from all around the world right here on the Let's Get Growing show. Thank you all so much for being here with me today and being a part of the conversation. I look forward to seeing all of you on tomorrow's Sunday edition for our book club. I'll see all of you then.